Hey there, rock and roll podcast fans. This is Mike Hoban. Welcome to Rat Tales, the podcast that brings you the music and stories of the Boston rock scene that grew out of the mid-'70s at the Rat and some of the other hellhole joints, each with their own sick charm.
Slip that corn right in the jukebox. Play number 47, but it really rocks. Move out on the dance floor. Come the end of the tune, you'll rock some more. Rock, jump, and holler. Yeah. Rock, jump, and holler. What you say? Rock, jump, and holler. You know, just bring your bread just to have a good time.
Good afternoon, Boston rock fans. We're here at Rat Tales with Sal Baglio, the former founder, and principal songwriter of the Stompers. I get that right?
That's good. Yeah.
For a long, long period of time, and now Sal's got a couple of other bands, projects that he works on, Peppermint Kicks, that I saw not too long ago at the Square One, I think it's called, in Rosendale.
Square Root.
And then I saw him recently playing by himself at a sort of a music conference out in Boxborough. So decided to drag Sal in here today, and so we can talk about the Stompers and some other stuff. So thanks for coming in today, man. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
So we usually do the drill. It's kind of formulaic in some ways, but you're an East Boston guy. Talk about growing up in East Boston when you were a kid, and then just talk about how what you listened to growing up, how your musical taste evolved, and you and I talked earlier about some of the other bands that we're both around the same age group. We're both 39.
Then holding.
So why don't you just what did you listen to growing up? You're an East Boston guy, right?
Yep, I grew up in East Boston. My dad played guitar. My grandfather on my mother's side was a song and dance man, played drums as well. And my older brother is a musician. So my first memory I have is that I loved music from the beginning, before I heard rock and roll. There was just music in the house, and there was in DNA,
What kind of? So was it? Was your dad I know you're a East of Boston guy? So was it like I had an Uncle Mario that played trumpet with a lot of big bands. He played with Patty Page and stuff.
Yeah.
But was your dad? What kind of music did your dad play? Did he play?
My dad was he listened a lot to Django Reinhardt, so he played that kind of music, and
Okay.
he would. I mean, the first chords he taught me where to put my fingers were the chords to the Sheik of Araby, the Django style. So he would just yell, G, and he'd play the melody, A minor, D7, and that's how I learned. I mean, it was, I just fell in love with it right away, and it's just one of my fondest memories.
So you didn't
ever.
even start off on the pop scale. I'm sure you had pop music around you all the time. But when you started learning, it's all of a sudden you're Django Reinhardt's not exactly it's not exactly playing chopsticks on the piano like the rest of us,
And he was just he could play, man. He was just so good. So that's the early '60s, and then 1964 happened. I watched Ed Sullivan, and like I said, my brother's 8 years older than I, so I had all the records. He was playing in bands, so I had all of that stuff happening. He took me to see Hard Day's Night, summer of '64, and like any kid, probably like most kids, I saw them up there on the screen, running around, laughing, playing music, girls chasing them, and I thought, that looks good. That's what I'm going to be. And I honestly never thought anything else, that I would be anything else, not for 1 second.
Wow.
Of course, no one becomes the Beatles,
Right.
That's just not how it happens, and if you think in those terms, you lose your mind. Well, many people have lost their lives over that they're not as great as their
Right.
people that inspired them, or that's the way it appears to oneself that you know. But so yeah, I said, man, that's it, and I just, it was like I just made believe for a while, you know, with the other kids at school. Let's
I used to
start
play
a band.
tennis racket in my backyard.
There
to
you
the-
go.
To like
Right.
Monkees songs. So
There you go.
Yeah.
No, there you go. Right. Yeah. Luckily, you know, I had, you know, first I had a plastic guitar, and then I had a little Stella that my folks got me, and I just, you know, he taught me the chords, and there I went off, man. You know, it was crazy. My brother, so in like '65, he's still in high school, and his band they did a single. They were called the Strangers.
It's a great name.
Yeah. And they weren't garage bands where I come from. They were cellar bands, you know.
Yeah.
3-deckers, no garage. And so that was like, you know, we were at the height of the British invasion and the explosion of music that there was then in pop culture. And my brother makes a record, you know, it was crazy. And they would open for the Barbarians and
Oh, really?
Burying the Remains and all that. They'd play the Surf Nantasket and Revere. I think in '66 they played with the Barbarians at the Surf and Revere Beach.
Well, I call up my girl every night on the telephone. Well, I hear her yelling out in the bathroom, leave my daughter alone. Well, if I don't get this haircut, I'm gonna be out on my own. Oh, what a life. Well, I belong to a rock and roll, having plenty of fun. Well, my mother thinks the boys are gonna start calling me hun. Well, I don't care what they say, my band's gonna make it someday. Oh, what a life. All right.
And so all of that stuff is, you know, he'd take me to rehearsals, you know, my mother would be like, take your brother, you know, okay. And then I'd go and listen to them
Get
do
them out of our hair.
Kinks and Beatles and Stones and man, that stuff was just, I was just soaking it all up. And I just loved it.
One of the things I noticed when I was listening to your catalog in the last few days is there's a real lot of '60s kind of pop influence in a lot of the songwriting that you do, or you know, some songs. What was I looking at here? A couple of ones that I just wrote. There's even one with a big shooby doop in there. Hot for Sale, which is later on. We'll get into that later.
Yeah.
But it's got a '60s flavor. It's got shooby doobies in it. So you want to talk a little bit with the '60s really important? I mean, the '60s that not the Stones and the Beatles, but you know I mean, I was influenced by the Archies. I mean, influence into my musical taste, even though it was not a great song. Like I would look back and I feel like it was a good pop song. So
Yeah.
did that play a big part in your development
Of
too?
course,
listening to a lot
AM
of-
radio.
AM radio.
Yeah. So AM radio, right? Before, I think BCN, I might have tuned into BCN in '68 or something, 69, 11 or 12 years old. But before that, right, it's MEX.
Yep.
And AM radio then was, you know, sometimes I think about it and I think it was all Beatles, Stones, and British Invasion and the Beach Boys and all that, but it was more than that, right? Because next to all of those great tunes, all right, here's You Really Got Me by the Kinks and Dave Clark 5, and then all of a sudden there's a song by Ray Charles.
Yeah.
And then, you know, there's some more Stones and Beach Boys and
Neil
all the-
Diamond.
Neil Diamond, and then
yeah.
there's Frank Sinatra.
Yeah.
And you're going like, okay. And I didn't hate it. It just all got, you know, got soaked up. You know, all the Petula Clark and, you know, Dusty Springfield, all her great records.
Oh,
and
she's great. Fantastic.
yeah, you know, I'm glad that I was there for that, you know. And then, you know, the late '60s, somebody said to me, I usually hung around with older people, and then there was my brother. Somebody said, you got to tune into this new station, WBCN, and I thought I found the underworld. I was 11, 12 years old. I'm like, ooh. And that's where I first heard, they'd play like a whole side of, here's the whole side of the White Album. And, and that's where I first heard Coltrane.
Really?
I'm like, what is this? Oh, Love Supreme. And I'd be like, and then Little Walter had a show on Sunday nights, The Time Machine, where he played doo-wop.
Right.
Right? So now, having missed that sounded like from another planet.
Yeah.
Right?
They had oldies. I remember being a kid, in that same era, when they had oldies shows playing 50s music and 60s music. It's very similar to that. So that's how we know that whole catalog, I think.
Sure.
And that's very influenced. I mean, even if you listen to, the New York Dolls, you go back and half that stuff comes out of, 1950s, music
Absolutely.
that they did, too. And a lot of rock and roll, I think, comes out of that. So.
Absolutely.
But BCN was, I don't know if you ever saw did you see the documentary about BCN from those early years?
I hate to say that I haven't seen it yet, but I hope to.
Oh, I want to put a plug in. It's really good because it shows they were it's kind of like college radio, very much like college radio in a lot of ways, except for they made some money actually, not a ton. I don't think they would then, but it really influenced my life growing up around here too. So
absolutely, and because then later in high school, we'd skip school, like in '73, and go to the Prue. And go up to where they were, you'd get to watch them do their show.
yeah,
It was unbelievable. Like, oh, there's Max Ann. Wow, and it was heavy duty. Now you're a teenager. You skipping school. You want to go see the DJs, the BCN DJs doing their show. It was big stuff. And then only a few years after that, you can imagine what it must have been like to be on that station.
yeah. Oh God, yeah. No, Jesus, that's
After all of that, it was surreal in many, many ways. It's just like a rock and roll fantasy. My whole life has been like this series of dreaming this thing up, and it just kept on happening. It was just crazy.
So when did you so you're being influenced by all this stuff, you're getting soaking up all this musical knowledge. When do you decide to take your guitar and hook up to it? So you formed the band with Mark Cuccinelli, but where did it start? Was that your first band?
Oh God, no. I mean we had one time I was in the sixth grade, and the teacher asked me, or maybe I brought it up. I have a band, and I write my own songs. So she says, "Why don't you come in and play for the fifth graders?" So now, of course, it was all in my mind. I think and I had to go find people. So there was a kid next door that played drums, And I knew a kid that had an electric guitar, and I brought my father's little Silvertone amp, and it was just the two of us, a drummer and myself, and I had to make stuff up. I played chords that I knew, and made stuff up.
About having your heart broken in fifth grade, but.
I really have no idea. It was so long ago.
Oh,
but
funny.
I remember that happening, And in a way, I just kept doing that, except that along the way, hopefully, I started to learn how to write, But after that, in high school, I had band, I was part of bands, mostly doing covers of the day,
Did you play in high schools? Did you play in dances?
Yeah,
and stuff like that?
We played the dance at the St. Mary's, St. Mary's school dance, and at the East Boston Social Center. If you got that gig, that was a big deal, And
It's like the Fillmore when you're that age.
Exactly, it is. I mean, you'd be
Fillmore, East Boston.
I would be psyched for weeks leading up to it, And you start out as a kid learning, Gloria. And the lick to dirty water, right?
Yep.
And then a little later you're learning, you're learning the intro to Purple Haze, right? And then a little after that it's Smoke on the Water.
Yeah,
You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
And
The worst song on a great album.
yeah, that's a good word. Yeah. Is that on Machine Head?
Yeah, Machine Head. Machine Head was brilliant.
So yeah, I played in bands, and we started to write our own tunes, whatever they were like back in that time. When I was 12, my folks got me a 2-track reel-to-reel tape recorder one Christmas.
Really? That's right, your dad's a music guy.
From Radio Shack, and my brother taught me how to bounce, so I got 4 tracks, and I just started to make stuff up back
What
then.
does bounce mean? Sorry.
Bouncing the track. So it's a 2-track tape recorder, but he showed me what to do to get more tracks on it.
Okay.
So it was 4 tracks, but actually you could keep going, but the quality got, got low,
yeah.
And so I would just, I would make stuff up. If I was listening to Arthur by the Kinks in '69, then I would think, well, I need to write songs about something, and God only knows what they were like, but that was my schooling.
So what's the first band name that you remember being in, or the first for you the first important Sal Baglio band? I mean, for for whether it was The End Is Getting Girls or whatever,
I remember a few different bands we had. One band I was in that just did Grand Funk Railroad covers. Was called Great Caesar's Ghost.
Oh, really?
But
that's from Superman when we were kids.
But before that, I can't believe I'm going to tell this story. We had a band called Bloody Mary. And our logo was I don't know if we could do this on here. Our logo was the middle finger.
Oh, that's funny.
Talk about raging youth. Anyway,
That's funny.
yeah, and it was. I think one of the kids in the band's girlfriend's name was Mary, so it had nothing to do with the drink. Although I'm sure we were drinking lots of Ripple at that point in Boone's Farm,
Yeah, if we're 14,
But
we're
anyway,
drinking.
yeah. And then I was in a band called Strongbow. I joined them. They were already going. They were like the big band in East Boston. They were like everybody loved this band. And
And you came on as a guitarist? Or okay.
Yeah.
And when they do original cuts, or were they just doing covers still?
Mostly covers,
Yeah.
but I think we wrote 1 or 2 songs. There was another guy in the band that was really good. He wrote well and sang well. And then I got out of high school in '74. I was 17, and I didn't want to get a job or do anything, so I joined a cover band, like a legit cover band.
What was the band?
I'm trying to think of the name. The lead singer, I believe his name was Joey Scott. Nice guy, great guy. I was a kid. Everybody I played with was at least 8 to 10 years older than I.
If you played in cover bands back in that era, because they hadn't started the whole rat scene and a lot of the original music, you could actually make money, right?
I think I made like $200 a week.
That's a lot. $200 a week is a lot of money.
I was in heaven,
1974, especially to live at home.
I was in heaven, except for the fact that my heart was in rock music, and we were playing a lot of the hits of the day, which were rhythm and blues influenced, and a lot of R&B, a lot of funk, but it was going to school for me. I had to learn, man. We'd do some song by the Average White Band or Tower of Power or something, and these guys, that was school, man. These guys late at night would be like, so you want to try to play this type of line over those chords, Sal, because Basically, I was playing. I took a guitar lesson one time, besides my dad,
Yeah.
and
He's playing Django Reinhardt. That's pretty good guitar.
the guy wanted to teach me how to read and how to do all this stuff, and I said, I really want to learn the Johnny B. Good lick. I want to learn the Chuck Berry lick. And he kept putting it off, and then one day he said, okay, it goes like this. See you later.
Yeah.
I learned that lick, and I still use it today, and that was the end of my schooling, and but I learned from these other guys on the road. We went on the road. I was away from home, traveling. It was quite a whole different type of college there, But in that time, I began to hear about what was going on at home at the Rat. And so I'd come home, some friends of ours would get together and we'd go down there, and I was like, what is this? Who are these guys,
So it's like Ready Teddy, and it's in the early days.
Ready Teddy.
Hair's painted up like an orange crosstown school bus. Crawling on the stage, you think a little rage really fools us. But it's all gonna stop when you chuck it all up. It's just like a puppet you saw. Yeah, the truth of the matter is your eardrums are shattered. Playing that more rock.
The original Orchestra Luna.
Oh yeah.
Hola, friends. Mexico has finally got the best of me. First week was great, weather perfect, grades incredible, loved my house, Harris sent me hash. What more could you ask for, besides love? This week, pigs, cows, and roosters, making the most horrifying noises day and night, millions of flies, no refrigerator, no hot water. Such a hassle to live here, it's affecting my whole personality. And to put the frosting on the cake, I can't even down myself out. The place where I get my vitamin Qs has a typhoid epidemic. Tomorrow I'm going to Guadalajara, to a bullfight and a ballet, one after the other. Remember, you don't know where I am.
Right? A Thunder Train.
The Vinny Band, were they around by then?
I think they came when we came.
Okay, yeah.
I'm pretty sure. This is like the Fox Pass.
Always running down the street crazy, running out of luck. They left me out here alone. I'm talking to myself. I got no friends I can own. I just stand here throwing rocks at their house. Well, these guys are all out scooping. I never do get drunk. The girls ain't got no time for me. They say, Jesus Christ, you got no smart.
Willie and Mickey Clean and the Mez, the boys.
Cruising round with nothing to do. The other one, I think of you. Get to your house and knock on your door. 'Cause when I got it, I gotta have more. I want sex.
And so I'd go there and I'd say, wow, so you could you can start your own rock band and do your own music and play here. Huh. So it started to work on me. I'm like, well, okay, man, you know, I'm going to be getting out of this cover thing and do this.
And all because of the Johnny B. Good lick? Just stuck in your head and they said, okay, I can't. I mean, not really.
No,
but
no.
yeah,
I mean,
but
I
it's
just
like-
always thought to myself I was going to be in a rock band
Yeah.
and do it, man. You know, I mean,
But you actually did it.
but that,
man.
that was in my head.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I took a little swerve and I went to work in a cover band, and I don't regret it at all. You know, it was good schooling. You
Oh,
know,
geez, yeah.
it was really good schooling. But coming home and seeing all these bands, I said, well, okay. I started to think about it, and I started to figure out how I was going to do it. You know, I wasn't quite sure. I had to find guys, and
So was Cuccinelli a boyhood friend or just somebody you knew from playing in
no,
bands?
no. So I met Mark. So I joined a band that he was in, and it didn't last very long at all. I kind of went down to a few rehearsals. I don't even know if we played live. We might have, but he and I hit it off really well, and that band just fizzled away, as most bands do.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they were all good guys, but you know, it just didn't happen. So I said to Mark, what are we going to do? You know, he's like, well, we should start a band. And we were broke. We were still teenagers. And his dad gave us money to get a rehearsal room at the Cambridge Music Complex.
Really?
And we would go down there, just he and I. And I'd say, I got this song, you know, and we would just rehearse, just he and I. You know, we were dreaming, man. You know,
Dreaming the big dream.
we're gonna play the Rat someday. I mean, because basically you had the club in Cambridge,
Yep.
Cantones, and the Rat
Yep.
for original rock bands. I put an ad out, I guess. I don't know. I think I put an ad in Wurlitz's for a bass player and a keyboard player.
I was trying to go. I was on your website looking at the history and
Yeah.
just to do my homework, and I saw it said in a music store. Jeez, I wonder what I forgot all about Wurlitz's.
Yeah,
That was downtown, right?
That's how you did it then, unless you wanted an ad in the Phoenix
Which
or
cost
something.
money.
Yeah, they just put it on the corkboard, looking for a sax player, looking for this, and I put a thing up there for a bass player and a keyboard player, and Steve Gilligan was the first bass player to call. And I think Dave Friedman was like the second keyboard player. And I said, you want to start a band? You want to be in my band? Yeah, okay.
Did you have a name
I
then?
gave him a cassette. Yeah.
Yeah.
I gave him a cassette of all these tapes I made at home
Yeah,
on
with your
my
4-track.
Yeah. And they're like, yeah, okay. I said, we're gonna do it, man. We're gonna make it. We're gonna play the Rat. And like, okay. And so we rehearsed a bunch in early '77. We didn't play our first gig till November of '77. And I don't think we played at the Rat probably until like January of '78.
Okay.
That's when we started.
So what was your first gig? Do you remember?
It was at a bar in Beverly, Massachusetts. It wasn't. Everyone always says it was at Grover's. It was not Grover's. I don't remember the name of it. It was just literally just a bar. We played a bunch of cover tunes and my originals. We snuck them in.
Now back in this, what I've learned from talking to a lot of folks on this show is that you had to like trick the owners, sort of. You had to say, yeah, we're going to play covers, and then you'd play like Brown Sugar, and then you'd have to play, and then you'd slip something in, and and then you'd go back to playing covers before the owner caught on. Is what I.
Absolutely. Outside of Boston,
Yep.
outside of those 3 clubs, that's what you had to do. Absolutely. And so we had this gig there. It was like a 3-nighter, 3 sets a night, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And we did it, and it was a lot of fun. And, you were asking me about the name of the band.
Yeah.
I had the name of the band probably a year before we did our first gig. It was in my head. I remember I was driving my brother and I were driving around somewhere. We had the radio on, and Freddie Cannon came on singing Tallahassee Lassie.
Oh yeah.
It's a great sounding record, right? And I said, I want the band to sound like that. I want us to be a rock band. We're like the Stompers, and I thought no one ever thought of that name before, right? You know how many bands there are called the Stompers?
Yeah.
Literally, I mean, there must be thousands of them. And there was, I guess, in the 50s or 60s, there was a popular band called that. I had no idea, We're the Stompers, man, rock. And that was it. And I remember, like, Dave, our keyboard player, was like, the Stompers, okay, how about, he was into one-word band names,
Yeah.
Like Bandit and Sky or whatever, and I was like, no, the somethings.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, no. And so, yeah, I had it, I had that name and the idea going for a while. And once I had the band, and I remember, I can remember going to the club in Cambridge. You had to go in and to meet the guy who booked the room, Can we get like a Friday, I don't remember how we got into the Rat. We probably called. It was probably me or. It was probably me, I guess, because the strange thing is that I don't like to do that stuff. And
Oh,
I'm
you
not,
don't like doing the business end. You like
not
doing
at
the music
all.
end.
It's
Yeah.
very uncomfortable and it's, it's boring to me and it's work. But I'm trying to think who else would have done it. It might have been me, or it might have been Mark. I might have said to him, like, Cooch is what we call him. Cooch, you have to call the guy over there, But I guess we called and we got a Monday night.
Which everyone had to start with, right?
Yeah. And we would play, and, we were young and everything was new, so maybe there was 7 people in the crowd,
Oh yeah.
right? But we played our heart out to them. This is before all the stuff that comes in later on. Oh, there's not enough people there.
Yeah.
They're not applauding enough, or the drum riser and all this extra stuff that starts to wear you down later on. It takes up all your positive energy. None of that was there at that time, And so, literally, those people came back the next time we played there, and they brought some people with them. And just like that, it just started to grow like that. And
Are you guys playing originals at this point?
Oh, yeah.
All originals by the time you hit the Rat?
yeah, we did all originals. We might have done Tallahassee Lassie,
Yeah.
or we used to do like Little Latin Loopy Lou, or whatever song we felt like playing, any old rock tune, Mitch Ryder, or whatever,
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was originals, definitely originals, yeah.
So before you played the Rat, did you play any of the other? Did you play the club, or did you play any of the other? Were you in Cantones or anything like that?
We
before
played
that?
we might have played the club first. you know, and then got Cantones maybe after we started to play the Rat.
Cantones was wild, huh?
What's that?
Cantones was
Cantones
wild,
was,
huh?
was amazing.
They must
It
have loved
was-
you being a Goomba and all,
it
you know?
was- I'd go in, you know, I'd sit down, have a dish of tripe, go play my show, you know. It was great. I mean, it was small, tiny little room. People were right up in front of you.
Didn't you have to walk right in front of the stage to go to the bathroom,
Bathroom,
or something?
absolutely.
Yeah, I remember that.
Absolutely. And yeah, we just kept on playing. I mean, we played a few weekends at the Rat as well, but we kept on Monday nights because it became something.
Yep.
You know, and we shared it with many other bands. I mean, we played. I'm sure we played with, you were mentioning Vinny
the Vinny Band, yeah.
Ralph's band, and we played with them. I'm sure we played with the Atlantics a bunch of times. The Real Kids. You know, I can't remember all the shows we did there. We did a bunch, you know.
So what was, just I want to, we like to drop music breaks in as we're going, so it's like, let's talk about some of the music that, what were you playing coming right out of the, when you first started playing, when you first guys came together, and what are the songs you played that you retained in your sets later?
Sure. That would be
Like Coast to Coast or something
Coast
like
to
that?
Coast was definitely one of them.
Is that
Yeah.
one of your first songs that you had
Yeah.
written? Or
I wrote that. I wrote that song. Most of the songs for the Stompers were written while I was still living in my parents' house.
Really?
Yeah, in the 3-decker. I was a teenager. I had written a lot of those tunes. Coast to Coast.
It's the traveling rock and roll show. In town and on your radio. When the drummer kicks that beat, you can't help but move your feet. Boys and girls all over town. Well, they're spinning around and around and around. You can't help it but feel the joy in every girl and boy. Oh, ain't them cats the most? Rockin' from coast to coast. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Raise your glasses and give them a toast. They're reeling and rockin' from coast to coast. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
This is rock and roll. That one stayed with us a long time.
And this, my friends, is rock and roll. Started out so primal like the six started a fire. You can't cool it down, the flame keeps getting higher. You can't explain it if you try, you can't do it. Only way to tell is if the people start to move it. Tell you that it's true. You can never be too old. You just better believe this is rock and roll. Johnny's been a rocker since he was just 11. When it's his turn, I'm gonna rock and roll heaven. He has said it all by the time he was 20. People have it all, some ain't got any. Tell you that it's true. You can never be too old. You just better believe this is rock and roll.
American Fun, I wrote there.
American Fun, that's a great song. I hadn't heard it in a long time, and I
Yeah.
went back and listened to it, and I said, like, I got to apologize, but I'm like, I thought someone else did it. I don't know why.
Yeah, yeah.
'Cause so I even wrote in my notes, and they're like, did somebody else cover that? And like, it was just you guys, right?
As far as I know, yeah.
No,
Yeah.
but that was a big local radio hit. That was a big, at least local. Was that a national hit too, or?
Well, so it was. I think we delivered that to BCN, and when it was a tape. You know,
Okay.
back, this is how long ago we're talking. You know, and then we actually pressed a single
Yeah.
with American Fun. And the other side was You're the One.
You
But that was like maybe a year after the song was written and recorded. So it was still the 70s when I wrote that tune. And so almost 40 years later, I tell this story. One day I got a phone call. It says Columbia Pictures. I'm like, what is this? Hello? It was Adam Sandler would like to use American Fun in his movie. Am I talking to the writer and the publisher? Yes. I said, who is this?
That was one of your buddies.
And but it wasn't. It was for real. Yeah. And so, you know, after all that time, that song came back. And,
Oh, it's a great song.
And yeah, I mean, you know, when I wrote it, honestly, most of my writing starts out as a stream of consciousness. Sometimes it makes sense. Sometimes it don't. Sometimes it doesn't have to. It sounds good. It feels good. Sometimes I change it, do a little bit of tailoring and turn it into something. But that song just spilled out. I was just trying to think of, you know, American furniture. James Dean is in there, transistor radios, rock and roll, I don't know, girls on the beach, who knows what you know, it's just all that kind of stuff. And I wanted a chorus that the audience would sing. And I can remember the first time that happened. It was actually at the Paradise, not at the Rat, but where I sang the chorus. All we really want, and the whole place said American Fun, and I just thought, well, I don't know if it's going to get better than this, but that was pretty good.
Oh, good.
You know?
Yeah. Well, the Paradise.
I think that
like-
was 1979.
Really?
78 or 9.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now Joanne, she tries so hard, she put heels on her feet. She's abandoned her sneakers, now she's walking a brand new beat. She got a transistor radio, logical mind. She keeps it playing in a rock and roll time. See, Billy, he's living in the past. He thinks he's James Dean. He's driving around so fast, searching for that midnight train. We all believe him 'cause it's all in fun. He believes it 'cause he's number one. He's number one. It's so hard when you're restless. You live your life on the run. All we really want is some American fun.
I want to back up for a second because I would just talk about who are the guys that were in the band? I mean, it's you and Coach and who else?
Steve Gilligan.
Yeah, Steve
on
Gilligan
bass.
and
Dave Friedman on Hammond and piano.
Okay.
That was the original band. 1983, Cooch left. We got Lenny Shea to play drums, my old friend from East Boston. And we added a keyboard player. So Dave then played Hammond organ and a synthesizer to make. It wasn't really like when you think of a synthesizer. It was
Yeah,
just
not,
sort
not
of
later with everything was synthesized.
yeah, yeah, but it was to make pads of sound. So we got him that and the Hammond, and Jeremy Brown joined the band, and he just played piano and sang too. So it brought another voice to the band too. And then even later down the road, we added a second guitar player. The band was huge, but But the original Stompers was the four of us. Yeah,
So Cuccinelli left in '83.
yeah.
It was a personnel thing. You guys not get along. I mean, I know how it is to be in a band. I mean,
No.
He just like said, "I've had enough."
He had some issues he had to deal with.
Okay.
Nobody was upset at him, or things happen.
No, okay. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I wonder sometimes I wonder if his story because it's a founder.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I wrote in here, we sort of talked about this, and you and I talked to this before we got on the air. The scene was really wide open then in terms of style. When people think about the Rat, they think like you guys aren't a punk band. I think from my memories, you guys are like a good time, fun party band. It's like a good place to like gun some drinks, dance, go
Yeah.
crazy, and listen to some good rock and roll. And but people always think of like the Rat, the Cantones, the Indian Square Men's Bar. All they think always like it was just all punk, but it wasn't not all punk. Like you said, it was like Thunder Train, and then there was like we were talking earlier, Barry and the Marshalls were playing then. There was a whole bunch of bands that like did not fit into that niche at all. Like you said, Orchestra Luna. So we want to talk a little bit about that. It was just a really wide open scene, right?
Yeah,
You guys
so-
are definitely not punk, so.
No, we were a rock and roll band. That's what I always thought about the Stompers, So, it's what I call the Border Patrol. The Border Patrol comes in, and they start to they start to separate people, In the early days of the Rat, but even before we played there, that word wasn't in the vocabulary yet.
Yep.
Punk, right? And new wave was way off too,
Yep.
right?
It was the early 80s.
And so
days, right?
all those early bands, when I think of them, I think they were rock and roll bands.
Yeah.
The Real Kids were a great rock and roll band.
You got a brand new lover. You got a brand new lover. Now we know I want you wanna come and tell me. You got a brand new boyfriend. You got a brand new boyfriend. Hope you'll be just as dumb as I was. Sit around now crying because of you.
The Nervous Eaters, Willie.
Down at Kenmore Square, I saw her standing there in the rain. She took off my hat, sat down on my lap in the rain. She was my BU baby, and I don't mean maybe at the rain.
Fox Pass, my friend John Macy, he said, we loved ABBA. We were a pop band. And I'm like, yeah, I know, man. I know.
ABBA's a guilty pleasure for a lot of us, I
ABBA's
think.
they're so good. They're great writers. They make great records. And Orchestra Luna, the original Orchestra Luna, they were just so good, and they were so ahead of everybody. They were just so different. That was like just coming in from another place. Rick Berlin, just amazing. And this was the original band, because they went through all kinds of different things. And
They're like Pastiche, too, I guess.
Pastiche,
right?
Mr.
Yep.
Kurt, and just incredible.
Friends all say they don't like my hair. They tell me, "Kitty girl, go anywhere." Girl, I don't know what I'm gonna do.
Yeah, just an incredible time. Yeah, I don't. You'd have to ask them all themselves if they would consider themselves,
Oh, yeah. There's not too many
Punk
of those guys that are
bands,
gonna call
but I
themselves
think-
punks.
And so then, I don't know when that happened. I don't know exactly when the border police came in, but it happened.
Instead of pigeonholing people.
They did. And it could have been when we left there, because we probably stopped playing the Rat by 1980.
Oh, okay.
So what had happened was, it wasn't just us either. What had happened was, I think the first band that I remember playing, Jonathan Swift's, from the Rat was Orchestra Luna.
Okay.
That's what I remember. I could be wrong. Then all of a sudden, some bands were playing at Swift's. We were, you know. And then, then Bun Ratties,
Oh, yeah.
And then, all over town. Then, out in the suburbs, you get a gig, and they want to know, like, you play your own material, right? Yeah. Okay. And you go off to some place in the burbs and play.
The whole club mindset had switched by then, right? You went from, like, not just doing covers into, like...
We've regressed today.
Yeah.
Today, right, it's like it was before the Rat. Tribute acts.
Oh,
right?
yeah. There were tons of them. Yeah.
Cover bands. I'm happy that any musician gets to work. I am. But people's mindset is way different than it was in 77.
Yeah.
Bam! It exploded. It exploded. We were on radio, not just us. When I say we, I mean every band.
Yep.
From Boston. We started on college radio,
Yep.
and then got to BCN and COZ, AAF, and all the other stations.
There was a lot of local music getting played back then because it
Absolutely.
was such a rich pool to choose from. I mean, not just Aerosmith, but I mean, like, a lot of the bands that I saw in clubs, I mean, like, wow, you hear that on the radio.
And not at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
They played it
or Sunday night on
heavy
Nocturnal Emissions
rotation
or something.
Right,
yeah.
right. Heavy rotation during the day, Ken Shelton, Parento, Charles, all those guys. If they played your tune, there were a lot of people tuning in. And then all of our bands ended up going and playing colleges. And all of those people would go into the Rat and go into the main act out in Lynn and all these different rooms.
Started probably so you start off playing in rooms like the Rat and Jonathan Swift's and stuff like that, but then you start getting paid too, right? Which is a good thing. Anybody knows, there's nothing wrong with getting paid.
Not at all.
Artist purity shit is bull.
Not at all.
So then that's when colleges probably were decent. So you could like making a living now. So did you have a day job at all, or
Never.
You never had a day job? Maybe you have a day job, but I mean, you know what I mean. Not a sucky day job like most of us.
I was lucky.
Yeah.
Lucky
and good. There's a fine line between lucky and good.
That's good. That's a great line, man. There's a fine line between.
But so then I stopped and played colleges, and then this is all without a record deal. This is all like, so when you did singles for like BCN and stuff, I don't know when your first single was on BCN, but you guys, those were, you said before, it was like a tape, or like, did you press a single? What did you do?
So, the first act I ever saw that pressed a single was Willie.
Yep. Mass Ave.
I think it was either Mass Ave or Hit Her With the Axe and Kerouac.
Hit Her With the Axe was, because I remember they did a fundraiser for it.
And Ready Teddy had a record out, and there were a few bands that did it,
Ooh, wow. I have that record.
You know what I mean? Just incredible. And so by the time we were going, like 78, I think we pressed a single. We the first version of Coast to Coast. And Oedipus was the first guy to play it on TBS. Yeah. He said, I'm gonna play it on Saturday afternoon. And we went to Revere Beach, and we had the radio on, and we just waited to hear our song on the radio.
What a thrill!
It feels to me like that was the first time. We might have had tapes played previous to that, but that feels like the first time to me. And it was heavenly, man. It was just like, wow, coming through the radio, and And then we pressed American Fun and You're the One. And
what year is that? Like 79?
79.
Okay.
Yeah, 79, 80. And then we started to record an album, thinking, well, we're going to have to put it out ourselves. And I think around 81, we had recorded an album's worth of material and had it mastered. And then we started to get some interest by record labels.
You guys have a name, at least in New England, because you're probably out all the time. You're making money, and so
Yeah.
you're getting interest, and so that's how they found out about you. These guys, the Stompers.
Yeah,
and
they
figured-
yeah. They we also were an opening act for many bands. So we were playing in front of thousands of people before we had a record deal.
So who's want to talk about some of those the
Sure.
opening stuff? Because I mean I know some of them, but tell me.
Yeah, the earliest ones I can think of in the 70s still was probably Southside Johnny.
Yep.
And those were at colleges. You know, the first time we see a stage like that, sometimes it was a gymnasium, sometimes it was a theater. But also, Don Law would call us for anything and everything. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. We opened for, I think we shared the Paradise with like the Dead Boys and
Wow.
But and then a month later we opened for Albert King. You know, neither audience really dug us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But we do it, and it teaches you how to take a punch.
Yeah.
You know,
Very important.
you learn how to just do it. Yeah, you know, we toured with later on when we had a deal. We toured with Billy Idol. Still not a good match, you know.
Yeah.
And every night there'd be a girl in a white wedding dress giving us the finger the entire set, you know. But it teaches you how to take it, you know. You gotta learn how to take that stuff.
Well, Southside Johnny sounded like a good match.
Yeah,
And
that
that's
was
that's
good.
the- right
That
in
was
the same
good.
kind of vein-ish. I mean, you're not alike, but I mean,
You know, I know that people thought that, and it worked. It worked for us. You know, that audience loved us, so we'd end up going back to that same college and headlining. You know, so I didn't think we sounded like them at all. I didn't think so.
You don't
I mean,
sound like them, but it's this. I think I can see the same crowd being drawn to it. It's not like going to see like the Pistols and the Stompers. It's not a good match.
Yeah.
But Southside Johnny was a fun band too. You know.
We laughed, smiled, and jumped around the stage. Is what we did. Yeah. And so that was great. And then, before we had a deal, Peter Wolf and the Giles Band brought us on tour with them.
Really?
And a lot of those dates were in New England. And it just, you know, it changed everything. Once you play in front of 20,000 people, the next time you go to do the Paradise or the Channel or whatever, I mean, I think by that time we were already headlining the Paradise and selling out. But after you play in front of 20,000 people, it gets crazy. And you know, we certainly owe some gratitude to them for taking us out there.
Oh, yeah.
Unsigned band. I should say, Peter and the band did that for a bunch of. I think Butcher went out with them. And, if I'm not mistaken, he originally wanted Human Sexual Response to do this particular tour with them.
Wow, that's
Peter's
totally incongruent,
open
you know.
to different things, you know.
Yeah.
And they said, "No way," you know. This is what I heard. I don't know for a fact. They were just like, "No, that's okay," you know. But then it was like, "Well, you guys," and it was like, "Yeah, sure." You
Yeah,
know?
at least it's two fun time bands, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, that's the story I remember. I could be wrong, but things got crazy after that, even more crazy than they were, man. You know, and it wasn't too long before some record labels were interested in us. You know.
So I was going to back up for 1 second. I was looking. I never really think about who manages bands very often, but I looked on your website, and there's a guy who said you were managed by Peter Lembo, who was described as looked like Elvis Presley, sounded like Tennessee Tuxedo.
That's very accurate.
Hilarious. So
that's accurate.
does what's his name? Don Adams, the guy who was on.
He sounded
on
just
Get Smart.
like.
Yeah.
We met Peter. He was working at the Cambridge Music Complex where we rehearsed, and
what year is this? Sorry.
this is probably not long after we started. 78. It was 78. Because I mean, November '77 was our first gig, so really '78 was our first year, and we met him. You know, he was 27 at the time, and I remember those guys going, "He's 27, man. He must know what he's doing." He had, you know what I mean? We were still like 19. You know what I mean? We're like, geez, he must know something in the business. He didn't know anything. He learned. He went with us. You know.
Was he a hustler though, or was he good at that end? Or
Yeah. I mean, you know, he did his work. We were working all the time. You know, 4 or 5 nights a week, sometimes 7. Sometimes
did he keep
2.
managing you into the future? I mean,
He managed us up until 1990.
wow.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, he was there for the whole ride. He was the guy that said to me, I don't want to imitate him, but think of Tennessee Tuxedo, saying, "You guys should do Palisades Park" by Freddie Cannon.
Yeah.
And so as a joke, we learned it. So this was, and we played it at the Rat one night. He came to the show, and I said, we'll do it for Peter. We'll play Palisades Park. And then it became like a song we had to do all the time. People just connected us to that song for whatever reason, you know.
Those were the days, and so are these. Last night I took a walk in the park. I swing a place called. That's where the girls are. I took her out on the roof and the girls had a side talk. Dance all night to the rock of this band. We gave that girl all a hug. Tell them that's like a rocket ship on down, like a roller coaster back, like a loop-de-loop and around. you're gonna be lining. All right, name your stations, everybody. The night I fell in love. Got a Palisades bar. The night I fell in love. Got a Palisades. 1, a 2, a 1, 2, a 3.
That's a great tune too. Like you
Yeah.
said, and it's funny because it's Freddie Cannon thing, and that's Freddie Cannon song, and that's the thing that inspired the Stompers. When
Yeah,
he played
yeah,
Tallahassee
yeah.
last year when you're driving
Yep.
in the car.
And he was reportedly he was from East Boston or Revere, so
You can tell somebody's from your neighborhood though.
yeah, yeah,
Did he
yeah.
look legit to you?
Yeah, yeah. He
Okay.
his last name was Picarello.
Oh. Oh, okay. Yeah, that qualifies.
Yeah, man. So yeah, that's how that all came to be, man.
So then you eventually, after you're playing, you got a good career going, and then finally you get a chance, you get signed to Boardwalk, right? And that's got Ringo, Joan Jett, Jay Giles, the Beach Boys are already on, so that's a major.
I don't think Jay Giles was on board.
Okay.
Not the
maybe-
Beach Boys either. No, but
Yeah, I thought it was weird. I just read it. So I read it in a newspaper article from last year at, yeah, okay.
I don't.
Ringo and Joan Jett's not too shabby.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the whole. I mean, because so many people have these record deal stories that just end up being
Yeah.
nightmares. But so why don't you just talk about what happened at Boardwalk
Well, we were.
and what material you had too? So
Yeah. So we were really excited and happy. This is like when you're young and you don't really understand the business too much, you're thinking, this is it. We're gonna get a record deal. Like that's what everybody strives for at some point. Record deal. Like that's gonna be the end all of something, you know. And so we were in that, you know, we were like, wow, yeah. I think Atlantic Records wanted to give us a deal, but it was kind of not. It was structured differently than Boardwalk, and so we went with Boardwalk. So now the deal was with them, if we sign you, we want you to use our producers. And, you know, I don't even remember what thought process there was in that for us. Like, I think at that point I would have just like, okay, yeah, sure.
The record
sure.
companies, they know what they're doing.
You know?
Yeah, yeah.
So it was Richie Cordell and Glenn Kolotkin, who had just had a #1 record with Joan Jett, right, on Boardwalk. So
What was the record? Do you remember?
I Love Rock and Roll.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, and they also produced the Ramones. Was it? I don't know if it was Subterranean Jungle. It was one of the later Ramones records.
Okay.
So, business-wise, for a record company, it makes sense. These guys just had a #1 record with Joan. We want you to have a #1 record, Stompers, so we're going to hook you up with these guys. So, music business-wise, it all makes sense. It didn't make sense for the Stompers musically. It just didn't. We didn't sound like Joan Jett. That wasn't our brand of rock and roll. Her brand of rock and roll is great. It is what she does, but it wasn't what we did, what we were doing at the time. Also, Boardwalk had seen us live, right? And they based their signing us based on what they saw live. And what they saw live was Rock, Jump, and Holler, Never Tell an Angel, Coast to Coast, songs that we've been already playing for almost 5 years.
Never Tell an Angel, that's an older song?
Yeah.
I forgot the whole timeline, so...
Yeah. We were doing these tunes. Yeah, oh yeah. And Shut Down and all those songs that they wanted were already old. I had a whole new batch of songs ready to go.
Yep.
In fact, the album that we would have made in '81 had none of those songs on it. None of them. The only one it had would have been First Kiss. So those are the songs they wanted. Those are the songs the producers wanted, because they saw what it did live and assumed if the people who are going crazy for those live will buy a record like that.
Right.
Only thing that happened was they went in and rearranged and changed those tunes, slowed them way down, right? They were actually going for the thing of I Love Rock and Roll. They tried to get that tempo on Coast to Coast, Rock, Jump, and Holler, and all that stuff. And it was an unpleasant recording experience. It wasn't pleasant. Once again, I understand what they were hired to do, those Richie and Glenn. They were hired to make hits, and this is what they thought should happen. They weren't thinking like Sal's musical sensibilities. That had nothing to do with anything.
This
You know
is a
what I mean?
story from so many Boston rock bands. Like I don't know what the Atlantic sounded like beforehand. I like that record actually, but I talked to JJ from DMZ. He said they had Flo and
Flo
Eddie
and
come
Eddie.
in and do that. And they, I mean, Flo and Eddie, they're great.
Great.
They're in the Turtles, you know, and they were great with Zappa.
But DMZ
But DMZ, no. I mean, they should have been with someone else completely different. And then I forget some of the other bands. Same thing. John Butcher Axis.
Yep.
The demos they used to play on BCN were like so good, and I'm like, this guy is great.
Yep.
Then the record comes out, and I go, what the fuck is this?
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Literally.
it's music business.
Yeah.
You know, that's what it is, and it's different than music.
Right. But the difference is, even though you didn't make the record that you wanted, Never Tell an Angel, that was a hit. That got MTV rotation and everything else, right? I think, didn't it? Or was it?
Nah, you know, we didn't do a video for Never Tell an Angel because what happened was it did become a hit. It was regional, but it was also national. But on the day that Billboard came out with Never Tell an Angel with a bullet, and in those days, I don't even think they do that anymore. What that meant was you had, I forget if it was like 3 weeks of, you'll go up for 3 weeks.
Yep.
Doesn't guarantee you're going to 1 or anything, but when you have a bullet, you're going to be on there for at least 3 weeks, and it's going to go up. Well, that same issue, there was a story that said Boardwalk Records files Chapter 11.
Oh, Jesus.
So you see your single on the charts with a bullet, and then there is no more label. So rock and roll.
Don't ever tell an angel when your heart's on fire. She'll treat you like a stranger until you lies. Don't ever let that little girl know your one desire. Don't ever tell an angel when your heart's on fire. Never tell an angel when your heart's on fire. She will break your heart. She will make you cry. Never tell an angel when your heart's on fire. She will break your heart. She will tell you lies.
So
Maybe.
it
You know what I mean?
Had it been distributed? Was it in stores?
Oh,
or-
yeah.
Okay, so.
Oh, yeah,
But
yeah,
then
yeah.
the support just dies.
Yeah, that was it.
Jesus.
Yep.
Oh, Jesus.
The record, no, the record was out, and that single did really well.
Oh, yeah. No,
You know,
my girlfriend's from D.C. and she knew it. I was singing it to her this morning.
Yeah, they played it in Philly. Yeah, I remember Philly was pretty big. Some other East Coast things, and then, I've met people who heard it on the West Coast, and of course now with the internet and everything, it's, the whole world can hear it if they want, But back then you had to have guys working that record, and
There's a lot of regional hits if you think about it. Even going back to what was it, Orpheus?
Oh, yeah.
Can't find
Can't
the
find
time
the
to tell
time,
you. And
sure.
it's like growing up as kids. That's that's like burned into our DNA. But
Absolutely.
nobody in the West Coast probably knows what that song is.
Right.
I think I have no idea.
yeah,
Didn't-
they might now,
yeah.
So yeah, that was the first round of record company stuff, but the record came out, and I remember they wanted us to do a cover song for the single, and that was the one thing I was just like, if you guys don't do Never Tell an Angel for a single, you're crazy. Why would you sign me and then want a cover tune? Well, I found out later why, right? The producers had a piece of that song. It was a song called it was a pop tune. It was like a early 80s pop tune. I Can't Sleep at Night, and it was written by these pop brothers. I forget their name right now. Anyway, we cut the tune, and I was like, the whole time I was just aggravated and just bummed out, and they ended up not putting that as a single, and they did Never Tell an Angel, and I think that was the right thing to do.
Oh, yeah.
Even though it was old to me at the time, I knew that song was what it did with crowds and stuff. So,
How come it took you so long to? I mean, you guys had a following. You drew crowds. Why? Because I know why some bands ended up not getting signed or not. But why was it from the time you guys started playing in the 70s
till 83,
till
82.
83? It's like it seemed odd to me when I was doing the research.
I don't know. I mean, we would have people come see us, different labels, and they pass or whatever. The other thing about the Stompers is, like visually, we looked like four guys from,
Boston.
we look like, yeah. And there were a couple of times we did pictures where they heavily made us up, and we had to like look serious and all this stuff, and it was really uncomfortable because it wasn't us.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's part of the business.
You aren't the kind of guys that do the black and white in front of a dumpster behind the rat,
Well,
you guys just,
yeah.
I mean, it's not you.
Right. It's so, that might have had a little something to do with it, because now you are also entering the age. It wasn't quite yet, but you're entering the video age.
Yep.
And so they weren't thinking. A lot of times, music business and labels weren't thinking just in terms of radio and song, but what do you look like? What can we make this guy look like? You know what I mean? Not just me, but the whole band or anybody.
Yeah.
But there were a lot of us out there that got deals, made one record, two records, and then it was over. Whoever it was, Robin Lane, the Fools, John Butcher. You can keep on going.
Yep.
You know what I mean? The Nervous Eaters. Later on, the Del Fuegos. You kind of get going. You get going, and then it doesn't keep going. It's not an easy task. Just because you make the record and you go on tour and people love you doesn't mean you're gonna. But now on the same token, right? The Stompers lasted 44 years based on that one record. I mean, the most recent song that we played was I wrote in 1985.
Wow.
That was East Side Girl.
Yeah.
So, we did okay, because people will come up to me sometimes and say, you guys could have done this and you should have done that. And I go, I just made a living for 4 decades playing in that band. I'm okay. I'm all right.
Yeah. And plus the other thing, when you mentioned all those people, Robin Lane, you, the Nervous Eaters, all these people are still playing.
Absolutely.
Not necessarily. I mean, it's like if you guys didn't. And this is my personal feeling. If you didn't love playing, I mean, people play. I mean, I don't play in a band for any reason other than we just love playing, and that's it. It's like, and it's not about like there are people pressing records. They know there's going to be 25 people that are going to listen to it, but it doesn't matter. It's like. You're still doing it because you like the music. It wasn't a job to become vice president of like a corporation and buy a big house.
Yep.
It was about making a living, doing what you love. That's what I'm guessing.
Yeah, absolutely.
All those people
Absolutely.
I still see around all the time.
Absolutely. And making new music.
And exactly.
See, that was the one thing about the Stompers that was kind of a drag for me, is that what we fed to our audience is all that they wanted to hear. Because I would try to do new music for them occasionally. Didn't happen. They wanted to hear the songs that reminded them of 1982 and, when they were in college. And
they weren't divorced yet.
And that was it. And that was it. It didn't go anywhere else other than that. I've been writing and making records over the past 23 years, even though the Stompers were still going. And that audience barely knows that I did that.
Yep.
From 2019 to now, I've written, recorded, and released more music than the Stompers did in 44 years.
Wow.
It's simple. I mean, there's literally one record that's out there. Of the one album that's out there of the Stompers.
So with the Stompers, so you guys played, I mean, actively playing up until what, 1990 or so? I mean, I know you did you still do, you did a gig last November.
Yeah, that
and
was our last gig. Yeah.
Your last gig?
Yep.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you think you're done?
Oh, I know we're done.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, no, because I've never said that we were done before. You know,
Yep.
in the '90s we didn't play for a few years, and then we started playing again. And then, you know, wherever we'd go, the place would sell out, and there'd be people there, and so I kind of knew what it was about, and I would get myself into a place where, like, okay, so you're gonna go play these songs for these people. They're gonna enjoy it. This is what they want, and you don't have to get a day job.
yep.
So let's go do it. You know. After a while, it was starting to wear on me a little bit, and I thought, you know, as soon as it's not fun, or you can't honestly sing these songs anymore, then you gotta stop it. And like I said, I had all this new material, so it was time. You know, it was definitely time, and there is no reason to go back and do it again. I reunions and all that stuff. You know, we did it, we gave it our all, and now we're on to other things.
So let's talk about what's going on now then. So like I said, I saw Peppermint Kicks about 6 months ago at Square Root, and I know you got a new band, Amplifier Heads, and
Yeah.
you've got a few other things going on. So let's talk about what you transitioned to.
So pretty much the Amplifier Heads is all my new music. Sometimes it's just me in the studio making those records. Sometimes I use other musicians. Most of the musicians I use are on all the records. So, you know, Brad Helene on bass, my another friend, Jeff Keithline, or I'll play the bass. Drums, I'll always get a drummer to come in. It's either Marty Richards or my friend Kevin Rapillo, who lives in Nashville right now. And the Peppermint Kicks is Dan Kopko, who is in Watts and the Shanghai Lows.
I saw Dan Kopko do kind of like what my band does. They take classic songs. It was Dan Kopko, Gene Dante, Ad Frank, and Lisa McColgan with the four singers, and they did like Susie and the Banshees, and like Lena Lovitch, and and then they did I forget, just wild. I mean, 80s synth. They had a synth player too, so they did. It was great. Yeah,
absolutely.
Guy's a great singer too.
Yep, Dan's a great singer, great writer, and we met, you know, on a gig that we did together, his band, my band, and we kept in touch, and he sent me a song one day. You got any ideas for this? To do something? I said, wow, yeah, this is great. I put a guitar part or something. And I said, yeah, I got something. I gave him a tune. I said, I'm trying to finish this thing. I don't know. He came back with something that was great. And we're like, yeah, maybe we should make a record. And so we did that. It was all remote. We weren't even ever in the same room.
Oh, really?
And we wrote and recorded a record. And it was a wonderful experience, and I think it's a great sounding record. Yeah.
He was the kind of kid in the neighborhood who was always told he was no good, and everybody let him know it. And when he went to school, you see, the kids there would not let him be.
Peppermint Kicks. Who's in Peppermint Kicks?
That's Dan Kopp
Oh,
going.
yeah, you just said that. I'm sorry.
Dan Kopp going I. On the record is well, Dan played bass. I think Brad Helene played bass on one song, and Chris Anzalone played most of the drums. I think Kevin Rapillo played on one track, but it was mostly Dan and I playing everything.
Yeah, I saw you with the full band at in Rosendale that time.
Yeah.
Let's talk about let's talk about the solo show. The solo show that you did is storytelling and music, right?
Yeah. It is. So I have a bunch of songs that I've been writing over the past few years that are going to go on a record at some point. And I noticed a line through them all that they were all connected by memory. This one particular song I wrote called "When We Go Home Again" is about the idea of going back for a day, right? You know, the fantasy, everybody,
Right.
you can't go home again. Well, and then maybe you can, at least in memory and in your heart,
Yeah.
right? So the song was based on that,
And what's the song?
"When We Go Home Again."
Okay.
When the clock strikes backwards and you're spinning round and you wake up back in your hometown, everybody that was gone will be back around when we go home again.
When the clock strikes backwards and you're spinning round, and you wake up back in your hometown, everybody that was gone will be back around. When we go home again, and I will see Aunt Mary and my brother too. The radio in the kitchen sounds just like new, and the good guys playing all the hits for you. When we go home again, we'll see all of our friends. Yeah, the way they look back then, it will only be that way for a day when we go home again. And my dad will be there, and his hair will be thick. He'll show me some chords, how to hold a pick. And he won't get older, and he won't get sick when we go home again. When we go home again. Grandpa and Barney Brass, Cousin Johnny taking photographs. Ma's made supper, now hurry fast, 'cause we are home again. Coming? Come on. When the clock strikes backwards and you're spinning around, and you wake up back in your hometown, everybody that was gone will be back around when we go home again.
And so there's a bunch of other tunes that I wrote. They're all based in memory. A lot of it is because of my age, I wrote a song called Record Store some years ago on my 59th birthday. I woke up and this song came to me, Record Store. It's not simply about a record store. It's about that age when First of all, there are no record stores anymore. This is
Oh
something.
no, they're making it come back
Well,
now. Like, yeah,
but
yeah,
on the whole,
but 6 years ago there wasn't
not
the way it is
on the
now,
whole,
yeah.
the way the way that we
used to be.
remember them, and so it's about looking back. It's I'm 13 and going to the record store. Record store, record store. Wintertime 1964. Donna Central Music, my brother and me. Everything's a memory. Black diamond strings, black diamond strings. Gone to Hollis Music to buy them things with my dad on a Saturday in the spring. Horsey ride, horsey ride. Come on, mama, give me a dime. In front of Woolworths in the summertime. Record store, record store. I'm 13 and going to the record store. September 1970. Everything's a memory. And so all, these songs had a link to them regarding memory. I wrote a song called Glamorama that's on my Saturnalians record. It's about when we were 15, watching the midnight special on Friday night,
Oh yeah. Smoking
Circus
weed.
Magazine, Boone's Farm, Weed.
Yeah, Boone's Farm and weed. and
Slade, Mott, Alice, Lou Reed. So
first time I ever saw the Dolls
on Midnight Special.
Midnight Special. I mean, like, these guys are insane.
Absolutely.
And I bought the record.
I went to see them at the Performance Center in Cambridge, which was on top of Swift's.
Oh yeah.
They played like multiple nights, and Elliot Murphy was the opening act. It was incredible. It was incredible. And in my high school, I'm trying to think, was I still in school? My neighborhood, they were listening to other things other than the New York Dolls.
Not the New York Dolls, no.
I had to take a little bit of crap about that, but I love them.
You are about to witness history in the making.
Remember all the kids in the platform shoes. They were singing in 72. Watching the midnight special on a Friday night. The New York Dolls direct songwriter Glamorama.
So the one-man show, now I'm calling it the sexagenarian.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah,
and
me
so we were kids that were sent home from school in November of '63, right?
too. Oh yeah.
We saw Ed Sullivan in '64. You know, we remember those things. We were there for that. And so when I go out, I kind of play all these particular tunes, and some of them have stories that go with them. You know, like in that summer of 1971, we saw The Who at the Music Hall, and when we were going to the show, the Faces were playing on the Common.
Oh my God.
You know,
Yeah.
life was just on fire. You know what I mean? It was also the first summer a friend of mine gave me a tiny orange tablet. He says, Sal, just take a quarter of that. And because I ate the whole thing and ended up dancing with Hare Krishnas at Park Street. But so that's what the one-man thing is about. Just that conversation that we're having is how I like to present these songs to people, you know. So that's a lot of fun. And we just did a gig with my new band, playing all the songs from the Amplifier Heads.
Up on Utah Street, he got himself an SG guitar. Walking string, finger prick, and a tortoiseshell pick, and a head full of stars. He got a brand new record and a rolled up sleeve. He's waiting for the needle to hit. Looking for rock and roll anesthesia, just a shortcut out of town. Rock and roll anesthesia.
So things are happening. It's
When
things
you
are
guys
still-
got another gig coming up?
Right now, well, I got a few solo shows coming up. I'm going to do Gary's Comic-Con again. You know.
Oh, in July?
Yeah, I'm
Yeah, I
going
might
to
go
do
up there.
that.
Lenny and I might go up there.
Excellent.
Lenny's the producer.
And I know in November we're going to be playing at the Bull Run out in Shirley.
Oh, really?
Yeah, with the full band. Yeah,
It's a great venue, huh?
yeah, beautiful.
I love that
Yep,
place.
we're going to be there the Saturday after Thanksgiving.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I'll definitely be on your, keep me on your mailing list.
Absolutely, absolutely, Mike.
All right, I think we covered pretty much what we want to cover today. It was great having you come in here, Sal. Great to see you
That was
again.
it went by really quick.
Went
because
by really,
it
really
was
fast.
a gas.
Yeah.
It really, really
Thanks
was.
for coming
Thank
in,
you,
man.
Thank you for having me, Mike.
All right. Thanks for listening to Rat Tales, Boston Rock Stories. Rat Tales is produced and directed by Lenny Scaletta and Mike Hoban, with a huge thanks to Medford Community Media in beautiful downtown Medford, Massachusetts.